Hey guys, how are you? When playing video games, few things supply the feeling of achievement or finality that comes from beating a boss. It means you survived, completed a challenge, and lived another day. When you think of Halo's linear campaigns, the last thing you probably think of are the so-called bosses that you fight in-game. But they exist. Whether you see them fitting for the title, by my definition there are 26 bosses, with each specific encounter being a singular mark on the list. My personal requirements for something to be labeled a boss is that it has to cap an important scene or battle, constitute its own battle, and be biological or otherwise cognizant in nature. With our outline set up, let's check out all of Halo's bosses. I decided to go with the order of release date for this video, so we'll start with Halo CE. There are none. Whether it was due to hardware or time limitations, or simply wasn't planned is unknown, I believe. With that, let's move on to Halo 2. Halo 2 was a very exploratory title. This game saw not only our first bosses, but also our first look into the Covenant lifestyle, as well as the first and only time that Halo included popular modern music, namely from bands such as Incubus and Breaking Benjamin. I'm unsure of any solid evidence for this, but I imagine Marty was a little annoyed by that, having composed the score and then having it overblown. But back to bosses. Halo 2's explosive introduction only continued with the reveal of the Covenant Scarab, a giant walker tank with one main cannon and a smaller plasma gun as well. This beast tore up New Mombasa until finally being boarded by the Master Chief at the dead end of a trap. Although not a boss by traditional means, the Scarab does technically fit the biological bullet point, with its insides consisting of Legolo worms, the same used to form the Hunters. The giant walker has 2 decks full of infantry of all kinds, which is super fun to experience. There are also 2 pilots which control the Scarab systems. They actually did not trust certain groups of Legolo worms to handle the task themselves, so they had to be monitored. How they would tell the worm groups apart, I will never know. The battle consists of simply clearing the walker of infantry, and there are many weapons with which to do so. The area around the end of the mission is littered with snipers, rockets, shotguns, etc. Be careful though, as sniper rounds ricochet so wildly sometimes that you can commit suicide by accident. I know I've recorded it at one point, but I can't find it, so anecdotal evidence. You can also jump onto the Scarab and clear it as it moves. This is helpful for speed runs, while also just being a fun trick to keep the pace. Music helps too. The next boss introduced to us is the Heretic leader, Sessa Rafume. The Prophets sent Thel Vadami, their newly appointed arbiter, to deal with Sessa's heresy for good, to stifle any voice that would challenge the teachings of the Covenant. After searching for Sessa throughout the mining facility on Threshold, the arbiter enacts a dangerous plan, forcing Sessa into a final hangar bay, where he'd planned on escaping to orbit in a Seraph fighter. After a brief exchange of words, Sessa fires his plasma rifles at Thel, causing him to take cover. He then activates 2 holodrones, visual clones of himself that can also cause damage, somehow. When shooting the wrong Sessa, the image will shimmer, proving a fake. With a good eye, you can easily spot the true physical form and cut him down with a sword. Gameplay-wise, it's a pretty easy battle so long as you avoid being shot by the holodrones. Legendary is the only difficulty that adds a challenge to this, as Sessa will no doubt survive long enough to retreat into the Forerunner chutes of the sides. This allows his clones to do some damage, but careful attention will prove victorious. After the battle, Thel escaped Threshold with 343 Guilty Spark. For more about Sessa, see his Faces of Halo video, where I explain more of how he fit into this situation. The next boss is the Prophet of Regret. Regret had jumped to Earth too early, and realizing his mistake, left by jumping in slip space within Earth's orbit, but not before leaving groundside troops to invade, hence ODST. On board the In Amber Clad, Miranda followed Regret to Delta Halo, bringing the Chief and Johnson along for the ride. After following Regret's footsteps, or the Chief found him holed up in a temple-like structure, jutting out of the waters of the ancient ocean of the Ring. Many honor guards surrounded Regret, being some of the highest-ranked members the Covenant had to offer. After dispatching some of them, the Chief boarded Regret's hover chair and literally beat him senseless. This battle is super easy on anything but Legendary, and even then, the additional grunts and honor guards are the real danger, attacking you while you're distracted with Regret's teleportation. Occasionally his beam will get you too. It functions similar to a hunter's cannon. One funny thing that came with Halo 2 Anniversary was the addition of a skull that plays guitar sounds with each punch. The story implications of this are grand. One of the prophets is killed, allowing Truth to more easily consolidate power. This also gives him an excuse to replace the elites with the more malleable minds of the brutes. The Master Chief escaped this battle straight into the clutches of the Gravemind, which would probably scare me to death. But now we move on to the next and final boss of Halo 2. Tartarus, the chieftain of the brutes. Having been the Prophet's secret weapon, Tartarus was a key player in the near activation of Delta Halo. Even when presented with clear evidence of the Covenant's lies, Tartarus still went through with his plans and attacked Thel and his squad. This battle consists of fighting Tartarus in between periods of invulnerability, all while fighting additional brutes and waiting for Johnson to snipe Donkey Kong 3 times so you can hurt him. This wears off the invincibility for a short time. If you can avoid his hammer, defeating Tartarus should prove simple, especially if you do as I did when I was a kid and bring a Banshee into the final activation chamber. It's a strategy. At the end of the battle, it is satisfying to see Thel kill the very brute that burned the Mark of Shame into his skin. Miranda removes the index from the core, and a cancellation beam is sent out. Once that's settled, the unlikely trio is edified of the Ark's significance and location. Next we have Halo 3. The bosses in this game are primarily Scarabs. These are larger and more dangerous than the Scarab in Halo 2. After destroying the legs, the walker will fall and be boarded, with an exposed power core in the back, coursing with Legolo worms. After firing into the power source, the Scarab explodes with a satisfying flash of blue. There are 3 instances when you'll fight Scarabs, the first of which is on the Storm, the second is on the Ark, where you get to attack it with a tank. The final instance has you fighting 2 Scarabs on the Covenant, at the Citadel protecting Truth. This time you have a Hornet. My favorite plan of action is to carefully land the Hornet, blast the power source, escape, rinse, and repeat. Before we move further, let's look at an often missed sequence on the Ark. The Prophet of Truth explains to Sethagus, a brute chieftain, that if he succeeds in killing the chief, he will become the new boss of the brutes. The jetpack brutes surrounding Sethagus are warned not to interfere until the chief has either been slain or Sethagus dies.
You must win this fight on your own. Failure will bring a fate worse than death. Abandonment as we step forward without you.
Of course the chief wins, but it's satisfying to have another brute 1v1. Until he veers off and attacks the Arbiter for some reason. Next and last for Halo 3 is Guilty Spark. This battle could have been so cool. After blasting Johnson for threatening the new Halo Ring's structural integrity, Guilty Spark goes full rampant on the Chief and the Arbiter. John grabs Johnson's Spartan laser and shoots Guilty Spark 3 times. Such a lackluster death for my favorite Halo character. It's my personal belief that Guilty Spark became attached to the new ring, as it was a replacement for the one John destroyed. In a way, I can understand where he was coming from, but you killed my boy Johnson, so. Next one might throw you off a bit. Halo Wars was a refreshing breath and a new genre for Halo to explore. There was only one boss in this game, an unfinished Super Scarab. This thing was beastly, especially on Legendary, and was protected by many units before finally being destroyed. The next game is ODST, which only has a Scarab in regards to bosses. It's very similar to Halo 3's Scarab battles, but just in a Banshee this time. Onward. Halo Reach, no bosses. Halo 4, no bosses. I was originally going to include the Lich battle, but that isn't worked internally by hunters. The inner space still has a crew of infantry and a power source to destroy, but isn't technically biological, so doesn't make the cut. Sorry, Air Scarab. Next is everyone's favorite, Halo 5. Among the list of issues with Halo 5 was its campaign. Within the list of its issues was the fact that you had to fight the Warden Eternal 7 times. The Warden Eternal was a Promethean-turned protector of Cortana during her rampant actions in Halo 5. The battles themselves had you shooting the Warden in the back for damage. This, albeit unoriginal, was not the crux of people's distaste. The sheer amount of times we fought the Warden simply drove us into monotony. The Warden also exists in the multiplayer Warzone. There are a plethora of other Radiant bosses, including Tank Masters, Banshee Raiders, Promethean Knights, etc. Perhaps the most notable of these, though, is Yap Yap the Destroyer, a grunt in a mech suit. I personally find it to fly in the face of the canon hierarchy, but I guess times are strange post-Covenant. The character itself is funny and even had a short spotlight as a theme on the Master Chief Collection, granting you a special nameplate and providing fun, goofy game types in multiplayer. The final stop on this tour of bosses is in Halo Wars 2. You fight a lot of Scarabs, including one in a really cool scene with Alice, where banished Scarabs are shown to be amphibious. Who knew? But the most important boss in Halo Wars 2 is Decimus, Atriox's second in command. This brute fights in a large mech suit along with a massive mace. Between the mace, his ability to distort gravity, and his calling of cleansing beams from the Enduring Conviction, he makes for a decently difficult fight. Decimus is also a playable character within the multiplayer. As a last minute addition, we could include the proto-grave mine from the Awakening the Nightmare DLC. It is technically biological and uses tentacles along with additional units to try and fend you off. This fails, of course, and the brutes succeed in cleaning up their own mess. Well, the earlier estimate of 26 bosses has clearly gone out the window, hasn't it? I actually didn't think to add in Halo 5 multiplayer bosses until after I began working on the script. Same goes for the proto-grave mine in Halo Wars 2. Anyways, that's a solid tour of the bosses of Halo. For better or for worse, these battles punctuated the campaigns of a series we all enjoy. Though not all of them had deep stories, they all fit a fun puzzle piece into the Halo story. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Today's video has been one of my most difficult yet, so I hope you enjoyed. If you did, feel free to like, subscribe, and watch another. That's it for now. I'll see you soon.